Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This is season 2, episode 23. Just give me ownership of my healing, whatever that looks like. And so we were outside playing, and that's me and the 6-year-old. He's 7 now, but I'm going to keep saying 6-year-old. And so we're outside playing, and he falls off of his bike, and there's no sign of injury. So no blood, no scrapes, nothing. And so me being the mom that I am, knowing that he has to have a little bit of thick skin to operate in this world, I say, well, you're okay. And his response to me is, you don't get to tell me if I'm okay. You're not in this body. And at the time, I was like, little boy, who do you think you're talking to? But I didn't say that to him because in that moment, I thought, well, he's kind of right because I'm not in his body and I don't know how his pain feels. And so later, he ended up being able to run and get back on his bike again. But for a moment, he needed a break to take a rest because his leg was hurting him. And so we just did that and then we moved on. Now, I could have told him, no, you're going to get back up and you're going to get back on that bike because I felt like that's what he needed in order for him to not be afraid of falling down again. But the reality is, he knew what he needed in that moment, even at 7 years old. And doesn't that happen when we have experienced some form of trauma that was caused by the actions or behaviors of someone else? And we allow them to tell us how we can respond to the traumatic experience and the trauma that they created. So, oftentimes, when someone does something to you, whether their intentions are good or whether it be an inadvertent um, effect on you, like they didn't try to affect you, but they did, or whether it's someone who does it intentionally and purposefully, whenever you respond or react to the trauma that you're experiencing, they want to control or tell you how you're allowed to respond to that situation. And oftentimes, our response might be things like people pleasing. So we'll start to do whatever we feel like the other person needs from us or the people around us need from us in order for us to not receive a negative response, which is what caused the trauma in the first place. Or we will build up some sort of wall or boundary around ourselves to ensure that we're not hurt again by the same people who inflicted the pain on us from the beginning. And when we start to notice that people pleasing isn't working for us and that it's not really a healing attempt, it's just a protection attempt. And when we start to notice that we don't have to create those walls around ourselves for everybody, that we only have to set boundaries with certain people because only certain people have utilized their access to us to hurt us, then those people start to notice that maybe the rules are different for them, or maybe the way you're responding to them is very different than the way that you would respond to other people. But the reality of our healing journey and the spaces that we've been traumatized by is very similar to the story that I told you about my 7-year-old. You don't get to tell someone that you've traumatized when they're okay. You don't get to tell them when their hurt and their healing should be over. And if you're on the receiving end of that, you don't have to heal because someone else says that you should be healing, and you don't have to heal the way that they say that you're supposed to be healing just because they're trying to protect themselves. So the first thing that we really need to internalize is that people can't tell you how to hurt. So when someone does something to you and it hurts your feelings or it triggers you or it causes a response in you, they can't tell you whether you're okay. They can't tell you whether that thing should hurt you. They can't tell you whether you need to just get over it because your response is deeply rooted in your historical experiences. So if there's something that would have affected you in your past that's connected to this thing, because again, if it's historical or if it's hysterical, it's historical, then it may affect you in a way that it would never affect anybody else. An example is I have a strong disdain for screaming each other's name up and down the stairs. One of the reasons is because My parents used to do that when I was a kid, and for some reason, it just like shook me. And I think as I'm starting to heal those inner wounds inside of me, I think that the reason is because that loud noise was unpredictable. And I like to be in control of my surroundings. And if I knew I wasn't in control of my surroundings, I liked to maneuver myself in a way to make sure that I created peace in those surroundings. I realize now that you can't control everyone around you and you can't control all of your environments and circumstances, but I still don't like that loud yelling each other's names up and down the stairs. So there are people who can handle loud noises and loud voices. I'm not one of those people. So when I am searching for friendships, like they might be a loud laugher, and that I'm all good with that. But if they're like a screamer when they're in the middle of conversation, I can't handle that type of conversation. And I know that. So I'm not going to befriend those type of people. So you have to be in control of your own responses. You have to be in control of your own healing, but you can't let somebody else tell you when it's time for you to get over something or how the hurt can manifest in you. So that this was my intention, so that shouldn't have hurt you. Just like with my 7-year-old, I was just trying to make sure that you were okay and make you brave, so you should be okay. But at the time, he didn't need to feel brave. He didn't need to get back on the bike. What he needed was to take a minute to breathe, and then he was able to get back on that bike. But if I would have controlled that situation, I would have made him feel like there was something wrong with taking a breath. And so you have to think about, where is this pain coming from? Why do I feel hurt by this pain? What is this pain connected to? And allow that pain to exist for however long you need it to exist to give you the data you need to heal from it. And that might not be on someone else's radar. They might want to immediately make sure that you're not hurt anymore so that they don't have to deal with whatever the aftermath of that hurt is, which is, a natural response for people who are trying to control and maneuver the situation in a way that benefits them the most. They want you to not be hurt by it. If you are hurt by it, get over it very quickly so that life can go back to this same normal that you've been experiencing with him. The reality of the situation is that when you do that, you build resentment anyway. So you have ownership over your own healing. If it hurts you, it's allowed to hurt you. You don't have to respond to somebody in a negative way, but you're allowed to be hurt by whatever hurts you. When people want to control how that thing is hurting you, it's because they don't want for you to respond to them in a different way than they're accustomed to you responding to them. So they're going to tell you that something's wrong with your hurt, as opposed to apologizing for the thing that they've done to hurt you in the first place. And then the second thing is, they can't tell you how to heal. So if you need a minute, just like my 7-year-old needed a minute, if you need a minute to breathe and to process what's happening, no one can tell you that you can't take that. And if they do and they're upset with you for it, then you need to set boundaries around that person, because the reality is your healing is yours. You have ownership over it. So if somebody is trying to tell you the way you need to heal that is to just get over it, the way you need to heal that is to just move on past it, and that's not the way you heal things, because you need to process them and create boundaries and set a new plan of action because that makes you feel healed, then you need to communicate that. I'm sorry, that's not the way that I heal, you know? And oftentimes people will try to control the way that you heal because they've already assessed the fact that you're going to be hurt. They've already internalized the fact that they can't get rid of that hurt as quickly as they thought that they could. So now they're going to try to control your healing because they couldn't control your hurt. So that thing hurt you. So now I'm going to try to process the way they're healing it. It goes like this. Somebody does something, they tell you their intention so that you won't be hurt by it. If you're still hurt by it, regardless of their intention, then they're going to tell you how you should heal over it. Well, you need to talk to me about it. Well, what if you think that talking to that person about it isn't going to solve anything because they've showed you in the past that their pattern is to just try to smooth things over? You're probably not going to talk to them about it. And maybe you don't need to talk to them about it because part of your healing is internally processing and creating a boundary. So when they can't control your healing, even though they've tried, then they'll want you to give them ownership of your experience so that it accommodates them, right? So it's like, I try to control this thing that hurt you. It's hurting you, so I can't control whether it's hurting you or not, even though I've tried to do that. Now I'm trying to control your healing, and you won't let me control that because I want you to just get over it and move past it. So when your healing now says you have to set a boundary with that person or change the way you maneuver around them, now they're going to try to take ownership over the experience. And how do they do that? They paint themselves as the victim of the experience in the first place. So that's why you have people walking around telling you or telling the story about you where somehow you became the villain. And I'll be the villain of anybody's story. If that's the way that they've painted me to be, I'll be it. But I won't own that villain status or being the villain in their story, like that character trait, until I know that I was communicated with about whatever it is, and that I tried whatever I knew to do to help and heal the situation. Because I'm a self-assessor and I'm a self-reflector, and I'm not going to paint myself as a victim. I'm going to try to fix the situation. So if they've painted you as the villain in their story and they're walking around becoming the victim of the situation, even though it's a situation that they created, whether intentional or not, that is the part where they're taking ownership. So before you can own your story and say, this thing happened to me and I healed from this thing and I'm healing from this thing, so now I had to create a boundary around this person or this experience or this situation, they'll take the whole story and play the part of victim so that they can take over the narrative of that story. So they can tell people, yes, she was hurt, but here was my intention. So that it doesn't look so bad that they caused the pain. So they can tell people, I tried to help her get over it by being a person that she could talk to during the experience, but she didn't want to talk to me. So now they've painted your healing journey as something that you were doing to them instead of something that you were doing for yourself. And now, because they know you have a story to tell that could, in fact, paint them as somebody who had ill intentions, or could, in fact, paint them as somebody who maybe inadvertently did something to you, but now you have to set boundaries around them because they hurt you, they're not going to let you have ownership over the story. They're going to tell it first, they're going to tell it better, and they're going to tell it with them as the victim of the story. And so, if you allow people to tell you how to respond to the trauma that they created, they will, in fact, make you feel crazy for being hurt by what they've done, especially by really breathing in those intentions behind what they did, even though that doesn't matter because their intentions still can hurt you. And then they'll really tell you that you're nuts for having to take so long to heal for something that should have taken minutes for you to get over, even though your healing journey is attached to something that's significant to you that they can't tell you isn't real for you. And then if those things don't work, if you don't feel crazy enough for having the feeling or crazy enough for having the healing journey, that's when they're going to jack the entire situation, make it their experience, and somehow paint it as them being the victim of the situation, and somehow you're the villain. So what can you do about that? Take ownership of your own healing. If you're hurt by something, allow yourself to be hurt by that thing. There doesn't have to be a fault in the situation. Oftentimes we want there to be fault. There doesn't have to be a fault in the situation. There's just, this thing happened, regardless of who's done it, and it hurt me, and this is how I feel. And as a result of that, here's how I'm going to heal. And no matter who tells the story and who paints a picture of me, I'm willing to be whatever character in their story, but I don't need to paint myself as the victim of mine because that's not how I heal, and that's not going to take me to a place of healing. So for you and for me, in a personal experience that it may have happened, like, I'm going to play the person who caused the hurt, and then I'm going to play the person who experienced the hurt. So for instance, I think I might have told you this story before, but I made a comment to my daughter while we were in the car twice when her friend was in the car. I didn't realize that I said it twice when her friend was in the car. I thought I only said it once, but she really felt strongly about the fact that I said it twice. And when I thought about it, she actually was right because I had said it twice. And I didn't realize or have any intention of that thing hurting her. Like, I wanted her to do this thing, so I said it to her twice, but it was in front of her friends, so it embarrassed her. Now, she had a hurt. She felt embarrassed. And I created the situation that made her feel embarrassed. I could have said, "You're embarrassed. Embarrassment is your own fault because if you would do this thing, I wouldn't have had to say it more than once," which is really what I wanted to say. One. But my intention was not to embarrass her. My intention was to get her to do the thing. And it inadvertently caused embarrassment. I don't get to tell her she's crazy for being embarrassed. So now I have a choice. I can let her sit in her embarrassment and apologize for causing the embarrassment, even though I didn't intentionally do it. And now I've created a repair for that rupture, and maybe she'll feel confident enough in not being embarrassed by me in front of her friends. But I don't get to tell her the next time we're in the car, you don't get to feel a tinge of anxiety about me embarrassing you, because she probably will. When we're in the car and we're having a talk, she's probably going to feel a little tinge of anxiety thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to embarrass me again. I just have to show her that that's not my intention and that's not going to be my behavior going forward. But she's not going to just automatically trust me, and I don't get to control whether she does. That's part of her healing process from being embarrassed. And when I tell the story, I'm not going to say, well, my child doesn't do this thing, and so when I said it to her, she got all over emotional about. No, I created a situation where I embarrassed her. So if I were to tell the story, that's what I would say. I embarrassed her. I didn't do it on purpose, but I did embarrass her. And so going forward, I have to make sure that I don't say these things in front of her friends, that I do it in confidence with just her. And so that's when I'm on the giving end of the hurt. Like, I didn't intentionally do it, but my intentions didn't matter because it created the situation. Now, I've also been on the receiving end of the hurt. And what does it look like when somebody's trying to tell you how to feel, tell you how to heal, and then create and own the story? Well, I've told you that I've been in toxic relationships before. And in one of those really toxic relationships that lasted for about 6.5 years, um, when I was done and I said, I'm leaving, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm done, he basically tried to tell me how to navigate that year of my life after we separated. And so he was like, if you do this, this means this about you, you're doing this. Well, it was coercion, and he was trying to manipulate me and really trying to get me to come back to him. But he was like sending emails to my friends, telling them the type of person I was, etc. It was extensive. However, he had hurt me by being the type of person he was to me in the relationship. Now, I'm not going to paint him as the full villain in the story because I made a choice to be with him and stay with him. So those are my choices inside the situation. I told you I'm a self-assessor and I take responsibility for and ownership of my actions inside of the space. So when he hurt me and when I was hurt by it, he tried to tell me that I shouldn't be hurt by it because he was going to change and do something different. And that the only reason he did this thing, again, intentions, is because he was stressed out and overwhelmed and whatever. So I'm supposed to be compassionate toward his intentions, but nobody's being compassionate toward the way that those intentions made me feel. And it was over the course of years. So we know that that is a pattern of behavior. It's not just a mistake. And then when I said, you know what, that's not the way I'm going to heal from this. I'm too hurt by this. I'm not going to continue to experience this. And I said, the way I'm going to heal is to leave the situation and to move on from this. And so I bought a house and I moved out. When I did that, then he tried to control the way that I was healing. Well, if you would, and if you did, and if you changed this, and your therapist is even wrong in this situation, because obviously I was still talking to him in that space because I was still kind of being manipulated by him. And at that point, then when neither of those two things worked, then he took my story, and when he told it to other people, it was, I did X, Y, and Z to him. And he never told the part of the story where he was abusive and manipulative and coercive and all the things that he did wrong. and all the things that he did that were abusive. He didn't tell anybody that story. He actually, in fact, told them only the 3 things that he felt like I did wrong in this 6-year time. And so I had to decide that no matter what story he told, that I was going to hurt and feel that hurt the way that I knew it was resting inside of my body. I was going to heal from that hurt by leaving it and really getting myself to a space that I would never choose that type of partner again. And that I didn't care what story he told because I knew the truth and I knew that I was going to move on from that situation in a way that was healthy for me. So I say all of that to say, if you continue to let somebody control your healing journey, they will control it just like that. They'll tell you how to hurt, how to heal, why to heal. And when you don't do those things or concede to what they've said, then they'll change the story to make you the villain. So I just encourage you today to really think about, what is it that's hurting you? Regardless of who caused it, think about how you're hurting and how you're planning on healing from that hurt. No matter their intentions, no matter what they tell you they've done, are you going to create a boundary around that person? Are you going to cut off that person? Are you going to leave the situation? Do you plan on manipulating the experience to make it one that you can continue to stay in? How are you healing from that situation? But allow yourself to hurt, however the hurt rests in you. Allow yourself to decide how you're going to heal, and then decide that no matter what stories are told after that, that you're not allowing someone else to take ownership of your healing, of your hurt, and you're not going to let them shape or change the experience to make it accommodate them. You're going to feel the experience the way that it is truthful with you. And so if this resonated with you, I would just encourage you to share it with someone that you also think that it would resonate with. If you would like to connect with me, you can reach out to me in my DMs on all social media sites. Remember to subscribe to this page, like and share all the socials, and share this message with a friend, because if we keep messages to ourselves, that's selfish. But when we share them with other people, that allows us to get people out of the bondage that they experience on a daily basis, because they don't know how to get to the peace that they want to get to, but they have a desire to get there. And I would love for this message to help someone to get out of the bondage of allowing someone else to hold on to and have ownership of your healing journey, and to take that healing journey ownership yourself so that you can get to a place of peace. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week.